YouTube to I need to delete the previous one because this one didn't work out well. Let me know in the live chat if you're here. Let me know. Yes, this time it worked well. It's public. Still waiting 2-3 minutes till I find people in the live chat telling me that they can hear me. Still waiting 2-3 minutes till I. So, for those that are here, I'll see who's here very soon. This live stream will be about managing and relating to feminine energy. Juan Juan, okay, Juan Juan is here. So that's good. This live stream, let me give a background of it. When you read in Genesis chapter 3, it talks about the fall of man. I'm not going through the whole thing because this is not a debate, but I wanted to point out some of the consequences of the fall of man that affected the whole human species. But for believers, there's good news. We, by the renewal of our mind, we can outgrow and overrule these consequences of the fall of man. So, again, let me see who's here already. These consequences. So more people are watching now. I'm glad. So I want you who are here to go to Genesis chapter 3. I'm going to read it from the King James Version, so you can watch it with me over here. Even though, hold on, I may need to put this to, yes, this is much better. Again, let me know in the live stream if you're here. Okay, interact. So let's read. I'm not going to read everything Satan said to Eve and all of that. Or you know what? Maybe I should do it. Let me read the whole thing for you. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman. Now, there isn't an introduction given to this chapter. But in this case, not a literal serpent. It's not really a literal animal spoke to Eve. It's Lucifer that materialized into the form of a serpent to get the woman's attention. Okay, and let's read further. And he said unto the woman, again, he addressed the woman, not the man. That's another thing. Yeah, had God said, ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Look at this question. This is an exaggeration out of proportion. Didn't God say you shouldn't eat of most of the trees in the garden, or you shouldn't eat of any trees of the garden at all? Satan was exaggerating his question. Okay, why did he exaggerate the question? Because Satan was dealing with what they call the weaker sex. And if this offends you, then leave this live stream. I have no time to apologize and make people feel at ease here. I'm here to speak the truth. I'm here to educate and edify you. Okay? The female is designed as a complement to the male. It goes like this. The earth is a powerhouse. That's what the earth is. The same way when you build a villa or you build an apartment complex, you put electric wiring into the building. And you have the, as they call it, the male wires and the female wires, the plus and the minus. And they both need to be together in harmony for there to be electricity. When that goes wrong, you have a power circuit that can cause fire and the whole building is in danger. Ask any electrician. So if the magnetic electronic balance is not there, no human being should be in a building, because the electronic power circuit, the shock that will happen can cause fire or it can cause other stuff. Now the earth itself is a powerhouse. And in this powerhouse you have the animal kingdom. Well, you have the animals, you have the animals in the sea, you have the birds of the air, or the fowl of the air as they are called. You have the bacteria, the viruses. You have all of those physical life forms because they're not spiritual. And in this powerhouse, where you have oceans, rivers, continents, vegetation, when you have iron, gold, silver, and other material resources, in this powerhouse, the Most High designed a spirit being who had to power this powerhouse spiritually. And the whole earth realm would become a reflection of his condition. He received the earth, this powerhouse, as a home, but because it's his home, he had to manage this powerhouse as an energetic creature. Just like the Most High holds the heavens together in his being, Adam had to manage the earth realm. Now, Adam couldn't hold the earth realm together in his being because he's not the Most High. But the quality of life on earth depended on Adam. Oh, this gets through to you. So Adam, as an energetic being, he emits spirit energy into the environment that affects the physical realm. But Adam is assigned as a vulnerable, weak creature. Why? Because it was God's purpose that Adam would freely take from his strength to manage the earth. And God had a much better plan. He wanted to have a balance of fierceness and softness. The male is fierce because he's a reflection of the Most High himself. Okay? So, to assist the male in managing this powerhouse, which is the earth, the Most High, out of his physical body, he took a part of the physical body and he physically shaped the female, and God created the female spirit inside of that body. Because the human being is a spirit being. We are spirit beings with souls in bodies. So Eve was also a spirit being as Adam. Here's the role. Adam emits strength to the earth realm. He is fierce. He's like the Most High. When he appears, he blinds everyone with his strength, with his glory. That's Adam. And you have the female who receives this intense fierceness of Adam, and she makes it soft. So she is the manager of his fierce emissions. That's the role of the female. And at the same time, the man manages the feminine softness. That is God's design. That's how this powerhouse called the earth works. The elements of the earth, whether it's the climate and weather patterns or other magnetic structures that are here that keeps this powerhouse working, they depend on the sexual quality of the spirit beings that are appointed to manage and abide in this powerhouse. And the spiritual energy that keeps all of this place healthy comes from the man received and transmitted by the woman. So it's not just the man, okay? It's the man that emits, the female that receives and transmits. Those need to be together. That design is very good. So, it's natural for a female to crave male attention and male investment. So, I'm going to read to you something that Adam said, because Adam was smart. Adam was intelligent. Adam understood his role, but he didn't realize yet that it wasn't he that had to do it all on his own. So look what happened there. Adam, as the emitter, needed a partner to assist him and to soften his energetic emissions because he's quite fierce. Well, the Lord the Lord went with Adam into the Garden of Eden, which was located in what today called Ethiopia in Eastern Africa. This is where the Garden of Eden was. And the Lord formed out of the dust of the earth all the animals he created already. And Adam had to give them names, to give them a place. So it was Adam that gave roles to the animal kingdom. So if Adam decided that this would be called a lion and it would become dominant, that's what it had to be. Adam did it. Because Adam was the Lord of this powerhouse. But Adam could not find anyone like him. Because Adam was he was a community being. But there was no community there because he was the one that had to bring forth that community. How would he do it? Adam wanted to bring forth its community, but he found no one to help him out. So the Most High brought a deep sleep on him, and he did the thing and formed the woman. And when Adam saw the woman, what did he say? This is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she is taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So Adam saw that this being is like me. It's not the same like me, but she resembles me. She reflects me. So this shows that the woman reflects the masculine investment she received. She's taken out of a man, so her empowerment comes from men. And because of this, a man shall leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Now, hold on a minute. How old was Adam when this happened? He was maybe a few hours old. Now look at this. Because God was with him in the Garden of Eden, which was located in Eastern Africa, in what today call Ethiopia. Adam was there, and the Lord formed the animals out of the dust. There were already animals all over the face of the earth, but the Lord formed from each of the kinds the Lord created. The Lord formed them over there and showed Adam. How are you going to call this Adam? Adam said, okay, we're going to call this a dog. Okay. They spoke Hebrew back then, because Hebrew was the first human language. Well, you can debate me on that. Anyway, I'll continue speaking here. I know what dog is in Hebrew, but okay, he said we're going to call it a dog. And then the Lord showed me, you see this? This is the intense one, which is male, like we all are here. But this one is female. And this is how it goes. The male one goes into the female one, they do their thing, and afterwards, they bring forth a dog community. That's how the Lord instructed Adam. God was the first parent ever. Adam, when he was formed, he had the body of an adult, and within a few hours, he was trained into adulthood by the Most High himself. Okay, so Adam knew what mating was. Adam knew what descendants was. He was just taught by the Most High himself. And Adam, in his intelligence, realized, okay, every man that will be born out of me through this woman, because they're like me, and I'm a reflection of you, Father, they will sooner or later leave the energetic cover of their parents, and they'll physically cling onto a woman, and they'll come together and bring and sustain a community. Adam knew it. Adam knew how masculine and feminine energy relates to one another. Okay? And he said, and they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. So Adam was comfortable being vulnerable to the female. The female, who were just maybe a few minutes old, or I don't know how long it took for the Lord to instruct Adam, she was completely comfortable being vulnerable to Adam. So there was mutual trust all the way. You get it? So the powerhouse was working. You had the earth realm, and in the earth realm, you had the two spirit beings that had to manage the place, of which Adam was the head. So all the descendants of Adam who were male would be the leaders, and the females would be the transmitters. And they would keep the earth realm in a state of complete joy to reflect God's happiness on the earth. That is the purpose of human sexuality, to reflect God's happiness in the earth realm by keeping this powerhouse in a healthy condition. You get it? So, some of you came later in this live stream, but I'm going to ask now, for those that have been longer, do you understand what I've been saying until now? Let me know in the live chat. And this live chat doesn't have a 20-second delay, so let me know. Do you understand all that I've shared until now? I'm waiting. Good. Someone understands here? Are there more? One more minute, then I'll continue. Oh, okay, good. There are females here that are listening. Praise the Lord. So, okay, I'm going to continue now. So, female believers. I'm not talking to all women in this live stream. I'm talking to female believers. When I say ladies, I'm talking to female believers here. Your design is to receive and transmit masculine emission. Okay? And it's the role of your husbands and of the men in your community to manage your feminine softness, because femininity is soft. Okay? So, about this powerhouse, what's going on? This powerhouse was functioning, and there was no hurry to get anything done. Why? Because there was perfect peace, and there was complete joy on the whole earth. Also amongst the animals, who were just physical creatures, were not spiritual. And this powerhouse was quite intense because they were really taken away from God's strength himself. There was this being in the heavens, because the heavens only has males, okay? There are only males over there. And those males are governed by princes. And above all those princes, the Most High created a viceroy. This viceroy had 4 wings. There was lightning coming out of him all the time. Wherever he appeared, it is as if daylight came. For example, if you would have the earth realm and it would be night, and he would appear, he would make his day in that area. That's how intense his appearance was. He also had lightning coming out of him, so when he appeared, there was always thunder, there was always noise. This being also had singing talent. This being also had musical talent. He didn't even have to play an instrument. He could, not only could he light up a whole area as if it's day, he could also give a concert without having a choir and without having an orchestra. Why? Because he himself was the choir. He himself was the orchestra, I believe. Okay, if I said the wrong English word, please correct me in the live chat. But okay, you get what I'm saying here. Besides that, he could also communicate with others without having to move his mouth. He could do it telepathically through those lightnings that came out of him. He also had other talents. I mean, this viceroy that God created, who managed and ran heaven, he was a teacher, he was a ruler, a governor. He had his own institutions because he both had his own domain as well as he ran both heaven and he had his own domain. There were other princes with their domains. He had both his own domain and he ran heaven, managing all the other domains. He had his own, as we would say, palaces. He had his own gardens. He was the richest being ever created. And this being, before the earthly realm came into being, he got twisted in his head. He became self-focused. And this worked out before the earth realm came into being. But when the earth realm was made and Adam and his woman, his wife, the male and the female, were managing that powerhouse, they were the stakeholders of the powerhouse, this viceroy of heaven was thinking, hold on a minute. First of all, I'm not getting the recognition I think I should have. And now the Most High designed this vulnerable being called Adam, who should reflect him. And this Adam has a whole dimension, a physical dimension to his disposal. But God gave him this creature that Adam called woman, who's quite weak, who's quite emotional, who depends on her empowerment from Adam, and she gets everything for free? What? This viceroy, he lost it. And he thought, no. I am the viceroy of heaven, so I will govern Adam. I have experience. I will get Adam's investment. Adam's affection and attention go to me. So I'm the experienced one over here. The earth realm did not fall on this viceroy's jurisdiction. He came to the earth anyway to get hold of Adam, and he knew he had to disconnect Adam from the source, who's God, because he knew it would have very disastrous consequences for the earth realm. But he also knew if the earth fell in a fallen state, in which it would be decay, he now could have a grip on the human population. And he used the emotionality of the female, which is good in itself, to get the men. Because he hated the female, because he thought, no. She receives power for free, and she's moving around the earth in joy with the strength she receives from her husband, and she doesn't have to earn anything. This is what angered this viceroy, who was called Lucifer, but we call him Satan today. So what he did in the earth realm, tricking Adam out of relying on his source, which caused the fall of man, he thought he won something. He thought he proved himself by getting into the earth realm, which wasn't his jurisdiction. He was a viceroy of heaven. He should have ran and managed heaven, not the earth. He thought he was proving himself by also getting hold on the earth. We're going to read what God's response was to it. But now, let's read further here. And the woman responded to the serpent, not knowing what a serpent. She responded to Satan, who was still disguised as a serpent then. He did not introduce himself for what he was, a viceroy of heaven who turned on the Most High, who was still the viceroy. God didn't act against him. He didn't show himself for the desperate, narcissistic creep he was, because Satan still had his heavenly glory then. If he would have appeared in his raw shape, she would have been frightened. So he disguised himself as a serpent, something that got the woman's attention. The woman responded to the serpent thinking, oh, a serpent that speaks? Oh, maybe there's something God designed that I wasn't aware of. So pay attention to this. To get to the female, he had to get her attention. And because she was an emotional being, mainly, he used emotion. How did he use emotion, you would ask Rashid? He did it like this. Animals don't speak to humans. They don't talk. Humans talk to one another, not animals. But now there was a serpent, which was a dominant creature, which could speak. So now Eve was thinking, what? A serpent that speaks? Adam didn't tell me about this. Father, who's God, didn't tell me about this. What is this? So emotionally, she became confused, thinking, what is this? And the thing is, there was no serpent that spoke. It was Satan disguised as a serpent. Okay? So he got the woman's emotionality shocked. So, ladies, listen to what I'm saying here. Any man that shocks your emotions, I'm not saying they do it on purpose, but if they shock your emotions, they cause confusion here, just walk away. Walk away, please. Because even if he's not aware of what he's doing, if he's not aware of what he's doing, it's demons using him. Because this is the pattern Satan used from the beginning. Satan studied mankind to see how he could trick them. So when the woman responded, the woman also revealed that she was shocked. Because she said, we're not even allowed to touch the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God never said you couldn't touch it. God said, just don't eat of it, because you will die the day you eat thereof. Eve knew that. So the woman was shocked because she encountered this serpent, this animal that spoke. She thought, okay, why didn't God tell me about this? Why didn't Adam tell me about this? So she felt shocked. It was kind of betrayal that went through her mind. And then she thought, okay, I encountered this serpent that could speak. God didn't tell me anything about it. Okay. Because remember, the woman is a rational being also. Even though she's emotional, she has a mind. She can think. She has intelligence. She was thinking, okay, if I encounter an animal that can speak, and Father didn't tell me about it, and Adam, who looks like Father, didn't tell me about it either, and Adam is the one who has been empowering me all the time. So what else is there that they are not telling me? What else is there that I need to know that I don't know? So in her mind, she thought, okay, maybe it's better not even to touch that tree. But she internalized it as if God told her not to touch the tree. Because she was in a state of shock, she couldn't think nor reason clearly. So, then when Lucifer saw, oh, okay, it worked. This vulnerable, weak being that I despise and look down upon fell for it. Okay, now I can do the next one. You shall surely not die. And I'm just going to take God's word directly. That's going to shock her more. And of course, Eve was shocked. Now she's completely knocked out mentally and emotionally, because she thinks, what? Father lied to me? Adam was empowering me. I can't trust him because he listens to Father, and Father did he thinks for me. What's going on here? So then the serpent said, the day you eat thereof, you shall be as God, knowing good and evil. And God himself is self-existing. Right? For you to be as God doesn't mean that you become a God, but that means that you can sustain yourself, so you can rely on yourself. So Satan told her with what he did, because his actions spoke louder than words, he was saying to her, woman, listen, Father cannot be trusted. Because I'm a serpent now that speaks. He didn't even tell you about that. Your man who's powering you, who's the head of this house, can also not be trusted. Because your man listens to the Father. But the Father withholds things from you. So you're not safe with the Father, Eve. You're safe having control. So you must control your man. Because your man doesn't know any better. I just revealed something special to you, Eve. The trick worked. When she came to Adam, Adam was shocked also. But here was Adam's mistake. Well, no, here was Adam's error. Adam thought, okay, I'm the head of this powerhouse. I need to do it. I would need to deal with this threat on my terms. Instead of relying on what the Father told him. And that was the first sin. Self-reliance. Not trusting the Most High. Okay? So after that happens, let's read here over here. Well, you can read it here before. When the woman was shocked, now suddenly, because she couldn't think nor clear, she couldn't process things well, now something that was not relevant became very relevant unto her. So before I continue, listen to this. This doesn't only count for women, it counts for everyone. When your mind is shocked, which is you've been traumatized, your emotions are also not functioning properly. What happens then is that your mind is designed for safety. So you want to get out of this anxiety, you want to get out of this dysfunction, this defect. And in this, how they call it in the world, in this survival mode, things that are not relevant onto you or are of less relevance to you becomes very relevant. So that tree that was on the earth, remember, the whole earth, was a paradise. The trees back then were much taller than now. Today we have skyscrapers. In that time you had sky trees. You had trees going very high. So the whole earth was one big paradise. So this one tree over there had no significance at all to their daily life, not to their function, not to their well-being. But because she was shocked now, that thing that was not relevant at all became the main focus. And that's what Satan is doing today also. That's the only thing he has to do to keep you trapped in a state, in patterns and cycles. So okay, after the male and female fell, what happened? And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Hold on a minute. So now they realized they were vulnerable. They thought, okay, we are vulnerable. What are we going to do, Adam? We are vulnerable. So now they had to cover up the fact they were vulnerable. But were they not joyfully going throughout the earth, managing the whole place while being vulnerable? So now something that's not a problem became a problem. Not because that thing, their vulnerability, was a problem, but because now they had problematic thinking. They now had a fallen mind because they were in a fallen state. So now the Most High was not their father anymore. It was this fierce entity that you don't know what he will do. So you need to keep him at a distance. You see what happened? Fear came in. And they heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord amongst the trees of the garden. And the Lord called unto Adam. He called the man and said unto him, where art thou? So where are you, Adam? What's going on? And he, Adam, said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. And he, that's God, said, who told thee that thou was naked? And God asked, God knew already what's going on. Said, hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee, thou shalt not eat? And the man said, the woman whom thou gavest with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. So Adam didn't say she made me do it. Adam admitted it, but Adam gave the context. Okay, this is what happened. And the Lord said to the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. What she, let me say, is partly avoidance, but she at least admitted what happened. And here's the one who should pay attention. And the Lord God said unto the serpent. The Lord knew very well that it wasn't an actual serpent. It was his viceroy that turned against him, that now wanted to claim the earth for himself also. The Lord dealt with it this way. Because, this is what is said to say, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle. Hold on a minute. Satan is an heavenly being. He was the viceroy of heaven. But now God classified him as cattle. Oh dear. Oh dear. Look at this. And above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly thou shalt go, and thus shalt thou eat all days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Let's read further. Unto the woman instead, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be unto thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. God explained the consequences that would befall all all females in the future, because all females would be descendants of Eve. Okay? So these are the consequences on all women who are not born again, who are not renewed in their minds. Right over here. I'm not talking about childbirth over here. I'm talking about this. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be unto thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. So men controlling women is a consequence of the fall. Alright? And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree which I have commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. So God didn't say to the man, you are cursed. It said, because of you, the ground is cursed. In sorrow thou shalt eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou shalt return to the ground. For out of it wast thou taken. For dust art thou, and on the dust shalt thou return. I'm not going to read further here, but let's look what happened here. God's viceroy received his judgment right over here. And God explained the judgment by what he told the man. Dust art thou, and to dust shalt return. Now Adam was a spirit being, okay? The body was of dust. So what was God hinting at? What God was showing is that the earth is a powerhouse, powered by males, and the females are there to manage the strength of the men. And now that mankind is in a fallen state, Satan's only source of happiness would be feeding at the expense of the human population. So Satan became, how would I say, he became an addict from that moment on. So Satan he was already in error, but now Satan turned into a reprobate. He was doomed. And this showed the future, that in the future, the only hope for Satan to remain healthy, as you can call it, was by feeding off of the human males. So human males became the supply of Satan. Okay? The female, because men were now in a fallen state, she could not rely on the free energy she would receive from men. So now women had to be anxious around men, because the men now had no self-worth. So because the men had no self-worth, they had to get self-worth somewhere else. And that was status and advantage, the only advantage she had. But this meant that the quality of investments that women would receive would be either toxic or it would be lacking. And this in turn would lead to anxiety amongst females, and they now would cling onto men to control them. That is the curse that's been haunting mankind. Why did God curse the ground? God cursed the ground to prevent males from devouring one another and ending the whole human population. Because now their weak bodies were also mortal. It's not the bodies that changed, it's the fact that they were not connected to the source directly. When they were connected to the source, they operate in his immortality. Adam and Eve did not have immortality out of themselves. It all came from God's source. But now that they didn't have it anymore, they were now immortal bodies. You get it? And in a mortal state, God saw that if human beings wouldn't have to physically manage the earth, because before that they did it energetically, now they had to do it physically. Because the Lord knew very well that they couldn't operate in that energetic strength anymore because they were not reliable. God couldn't trust them anymore. So now they had to be occupied with something else. So now you had thorns and distal. Now you have thorns growing all over the place. Now you had animals out of control. This was done as a provision to make sure that males would not devour one another completely. But the devouring still happened because Cain and Abel, Cain also had no self-worth. And Cain sought to prove his self-worth by killing Abel. So I'm going to continue from here. But before I continue, do you understand everything I've been explaining till now? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. Good. Gonna wait 1 minute more to see if more understand it. Okay. So, due to the fall of man, human beings are born in a fallen state, which means we have a fallen mind, which is narcissistic. We are in a soft survival mode since birth. The only way out is by becoming born again and renewed our mind. If someone is not born again and renewed in their mind, they'll either remain in this, they'll either grow worse in this obsessive self-focus, and if this goes too far, they'll turn into reprobates, they'll turn into monsters. You understand it? Now, in the fallen state, males lack self-worth, they lack confidence. So how can the males who are supposed to invest energetically into the earth realm, because the powerhouse is earth is powered by males. But if the males who have to power the powerhouse, if they have no confidence, what's going to happen to the powerhouse? It becomes an habitation for parasites. That's what it becomes. And what's going to be left of the females who need the investment of the men? Because the females are there to receive from the men, transmit it, and the men in turn manage their femininity. But if the men have no confidence, if they don't have any self-worth, what's going to happen? Now, over time, this is before the Great Flood, when mankind multiplied on the earth. So you had ethnicities forming, people began to live here and there. The earth became a host to parasites because in the heavens you had the viceroy who was still there as a viceroy, but he was out of his mind. And there were also other princes in heaven who were also powerful, mighty, heavenly men. there was a minority of them. There were a few hundreds. I don't know whether there were 300 or 800, but there were a few hundred of them who forfeited trust in the Heavenly Father. So they now switched off also. They became narcissistic also. And in this internal void that came into being because they did not walk by faith, those heavenly princes, you can call them kings if you want, who had their own domains, who were leaders, they now, because they were not doing what they're supposed to do, they were now operating in darkness in the heavens. So even though heaven was a place of absolute joy, they did not participate in this absolute joy anymore, even though they were princes and leaders of this absolute joy that was going on there. They now want to look for joy and happiness somewhere else, instead of facing their error and repenting. So they put attention on the earth, and they saw that even though mankind was in a fallen state, they were now mortal and all of those things were going on, males, despite the mental dysfunction of the males, they still were fierce and they still invest in the women. God's male-female dynamic was still working even in a fallen state. The females still received for free from the men, even though the men were now occupied with physically managing the earth, which was burdensome. The females still received, and the females in general were happy. Okay? Because remember, the earth was still like a paradise, still had those very tall trees and all of it. It's just that mankind was not good here anymore. And mankind was mortal, and yet animals that were dying, animals that were turning on each other also. So that was going on. So those narcissistic those narcissists who were heavenly princes that revolted, they now began to hate human males, thinking they have a whole powerhouse. And you have those beings who are like them, which are called women, that they need to reproduce themselves. They get things for free. Why do those earthly men have beings like them that they can invest in for free? We don't have this fear. We don't, even though we are heavenly princes, we don't have this dynamic to invest despite difficulty. Because look at this. Despite difficulties that came after the fall of man, earthly males were willing to overcome and willing to endure hard times to still invest in their families, in their communities. And this is what those fallen princes saw. And then, turning into narcissists, became angry with it. Especially with the fact that those females were receiving for free. They were thinking, no. Not only do those earthly men have more dedication than us over here, they also have these beings that get things for them for free. We should get things for free. We should get recognition. They were losing it over there. They were boiling on the inside because the females were receiving from the men, and it just happened naturally. So, those fallen princes came to earth with the aid of human sellouts. They began to kidnap earthly men, kill them, drink all their blood. They would take in the muscle energy of their victims, and they now use this muscle energy to get into a metaphysical state in which they would become just as dynamic as earthly males. In this metaphysical, semi-biological state, they now enforced a rape culture where the human sellouts that held them out were kidnapping women, often the victims, often the wives of the men they killed, or the mothers of the men they killed, or whatever. And they brought all those women into camps, and they were having their way with those women. And they weren't happy still, so they went on raping animals. Then they raped little babies, children, you name it. So Earth became a haunted place. And the Nephilim, those beings that should have never existed, that came forth from those unions, because The semi-biological state that those fallen princes were in still triggered the pregnancy mechanism, but what came forth out of it was not God's creation. So the earth became filled with abominations. Life itself became dangerous on the earth, and eventually those fallen princes killed so many human males, drinking their blood. They kept fornicating with animals and females here and there. Eventually, there weren't many human beings left, and the few human beings were left were reprobates. Only Noah and his family were left, and the Lord used them to reset the earth. And you know, those fallen princes got their judgment. They didn't want to comply with justice. They were playing the victim despite committing genocide on the human population, despite going out of jurisdiction, despite forfeiting and disrupting peace in heaven. So the Lord made plain unto them, you don't comply with justice, then you're not going into heaven anymore. There was a civil war in the heavens, and they were removed, as well as the viceroy that initiated this whole self-reliance BS. Okay? So I'm giving you this history. So the earth became a place with those narcissistic princes that wanted to have their way. And those narcissistic princes brought forth those abominations that destroyed the earth. So why am I sharing this history? It's because it shows you that due to the fall of men, males lack natural self-esteem. They lack natural self-worth. And this is what, because they are not now operating as they should, powering this powerhouse, now unclean spirits can use their male strength to feed off themselves and make themselves gods over us. That is what's been going on. And after the flood, this thing occurred again. So understand this. When human males lack natural self-worth, evil spirits have a hold on them, and evil spirits now will claim godhood over them. You get it? Now I have a question here. Hi Rashid, would you mind explaining concept of the word referring to wisdom as she? Please, not sure, but guessed it made it for a softer or gentle perspective aside. Okay, look. The female is the softener of masculine emission. So she has to receive, transmit, and manage male energy, also male fierceness, which is sexual power. To do this, you have to be intelligent. The woman is assigned to do this. Okay? So to refer to the female, to wisdom as feminine, there's nothing wrong with it. So in some languages, they refer to wisdom as feminine. Because women are supposed to be wise when it comes to dealing with their energetic abilities. You get it? But of course, the Greeks worship female Nephilim, and they have a female Nephilim called Sophia, which they use as the model for wisdom. But that's a Greek abomination the Greeks are doing. So don't confuse the Hebrew reference to wisdom as a feminine symbol to the Greek abomination Sophia. Okay? Because a lot of false teachers do that. They willfully confuse the Greek abomination Sophia with the biblical reference to wisdom as feminine. And that's how they trick people into universalism, mysticism, and all kinds of garbage. You get it? So, officially, I wanted to make this live stream mainly for male believers, but female believers can also learn from this. Male believers ought to be aware of God's design so they can operate in that design. And that design implies that males, I'm not talking to males in general, I'm talking to males that are born again, because those that aren't born again, well, they're still in a fallen state. They ought to be ambitious and active on the earth every day, not relying on other men to make them feel good about themselves being a man. And especially not relying on the female to give them a sense of significance, especially not the lost one. In ancient Babylon, the lost one was going on. In ancient Babylon, they trained the men to rely on the female for a sense of significance, which is going against God's design. That is what happened in ancient Babylon. And ancient Egypt took this over. All the way till the Greek Empire, this was the norm. Men were expected to get the significance out of their female sex partners. Straight. I'm just going to say it as it is. That's why you had prostitutes, where men also went to get significance. Okay? The Greeks, at the other hand, they aligned themselves more with Satan. You had more Nephilim, post-flood Nephilim being born amongst them also. Think about Jezebel, whose real name is Aphrodite, whom the Greeks killed afterwards. The Greeks were very precise about the devil worship they were involved in, and they distanced themselves from femininity. Now you may ask, how can a ethnicity or a group of people distance themselves from femininity even though they need females to have a new generation? So amongst the ancient Greeks, females were repressed. In the rest of the world, females were burdened. They were still feminine, but they were burdened. With the ancient Greeks, they were just repressed. They were not even allowed to be happy with the fact they were females. Okay? So the ancient Greeks, they promoted sodomy, modeled after Sodom, in which you have older, middle-aged men with long beards, and who, let me say this correctly, they vented their sexual aggression on younger males. So this is homosexuality right over there. That's what the ancient Greeks relied on. And Satan was pleased with them. So pleased that later, Satan, despite hating females, he got into vampirism and brought forth several Nephilim, of which one was Apollo, who was called Alexander by the ancient Greeks, who is now known as Alexander the Great, who established the Greek Empire. So Alexander the Great, who's Apollo, was a Nephilim. Okay? He was not a human being. He was not part of God's creation. He was an abomination. He still is. So Satan made his son come forth out of a Greek witch because he was so pleased with the Greeks. And Apollo, who established the Greek Empire, his first earthly body perished quickly. He has been running the world as well as the demonic realm ever since. And Apollo's half-brother, Lagos, who was also called Hermes, or Mercurius, or Mercury, he is the counterfeit Holy Spirit to the world. Also called the false prophet, also called the god of the thieves. And it's the magic wand of Hermes that became the symbol of the medical world also. So, since the Greek Empire, you have this, well, actually before the Greek Empire it was only amongst the Greeks. But since the Greek Empire, the Greek rulers enforced this worldwide. Since the Greek Empire, the model of a man is Apollo, who is a mass murderer, misogynist, he hates females, he's a pedophile because he forced his sexual aggression on young boys. who's effeminate, who often dresses like a female. So that's the role model for males. Okay? And that's where we get the idea of majesty from. So hold on. So this demon over here, Satan's Nephilim son, he is the ruler of the world. They always picture him naked like this because this is majesty, his sexual aggression forced on other men. And that's the world system. It's older men who are sexually aggressive, hating females, forcing this sexual anger onto younger men. And the younger men are told to be respectful. That's where the idea of respect comes from. You, as a man, need to submit to the sexual aggression of older men without any resistance, because they are the ones that give you your manhood. That's what it comes from. So this is the world's model for a man. I'm showing you this to show you what you're dealing with. I'm not showing you this because I have any admiration for this Nephilim filth over here, which the Lord Jesus Christ will throw into the lake of fire together with all other Nephilim when he returns. This is the role model for worldly men. That's why you have racism, because white supremacy is the worship of this white-skinned Nephilim. He's white-skinned, blonde hair, blue-eyed, and one of his eyes was dark as night because one of his eyes was deformed. That's why you have the one-eye symbolism. Okay? And the one-eye symbolism, again, it refers onto the eye of Apollo, just like you see over here. Or they're doing it. Politicians are doing it. Artists are doing it. Entertainers are doing it. All these one-eye symbolisms refer to Apollo, to his deformed eye. You have sun symbolism, which refers to Apollo, the sun god. Now, in ancient Egypt, you had sun symbols also, but it was not the main thing. Since the Greek Empire, sun worship is the main thing. Look at this. Look at the corporations of today, the multinational corporations, British Petrol. I believe this is one of the parts in the United States. I forgot which one it is. Days in, look at this. All are using sun symbol, which are all referring onto Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. Let's go to South Korea. Why is the capital of South Korea called Seoul? The capital of South Korea was called Hansong for a long time. Why is it called Seoul? That's how you pronounce it, Seoul. Because Seoul is the Seoul, when you write it in Latin, is S-O-L, Seoul, which means sun, which refers to him. So even the capital of Korea, they openly renamed after the beast. The kings of Korea used to be Apollonians, but they kept it hidden. After the Second World War, they made it open. You get it? Now, why I'm showing this? Because everyone that was, because we all were raised by the world, okay? We were raised by society, and society is run by Apollonians. So this is the model you've been conditioned after. Whether you believe in the gentleman myth or you believe in the talk myth, for example, there's also a duality. You have the nice guy and the bad boy. You have the gentleman and you have the, how would I say it? You have the savage. All of those dualistic things are to condition you to model yourself after this guy. So, and I mentioned before, the Statue of Liberty is Apollo in drag. This is His Majesty right over here. So when they call those Apollonian kings Majesty, this is what they're referring to. The beast in drag. Promoting homosexuality. Promoting sexual aggression on young men, which is pedophilia. So, how can you follow this parasite over here and be happy and be joyful and do God's will? And how can you be even safe following this creep over here? You can't. You can't. Okay? So, whatever the world told you, I'm talking to male believers now, whatever the world told you, what it meant to be a man, unlearn it. There are places that teach you that being a man means you need to work hard. Work hard means that you stretch yourself out physically and you get mental and physical issues and you become sick. So hard work to become a man, it doesn't even make sense logistically because you already are a man. Okay? Others say to become a man, you need to have norms and values. But all those norms and values are related to Greek gods. For example, Sophia. Okay, well, they're not gods, but you get what I'm saying. So, male believers, listen to me. What it means to be a man is as follows. First of all, you already are a man, okay? As a man, you are modeled after God Himself. And you're designed to be a social creature because you're a social being. So you, together with the other men in the earthly realm, you power this powerhouse. That's what it means to be a man. You power this powerhouse called the earth. That's your purpose. This is your home, the earth, and you power it. That's what it means to be a man. You power it as a spirit being energetically, and this results also in your physical actions. You power it. Okay? So let me repeat that. You power it. So, what you've been told that you need to become a man by becoming like a gentleman, or by having norms and values, or by growing up, or by sleeping with multiple women. I don't care what they told you that you had to do to become a man. You already are a man, so what they're telling you is BS anyway. But what they are telling you is that you are a worthless piece of trash, at least according to them, and that now you need to do what they expect you to do in order for them not to kill you. Because that's what it comes down to. When someone tells you to be a man, they're actually telling you comply or die. So they're really threatening your life. Now, as a little boy, you have no other option. You get along with society because what can you do? You have few options, and that's understandable. But once you're a bit older, you need to reflect on this and think, hold on a minute. Why do I need to prove my manhood even though there's biological proof I'm a man already? There's even spiritual evidence I'm already a man. So why am I threatened with violence against my life? Why am I blackmailed into proving I'm a man? What is this? So first thing first, believers, I want to male believers now, unlearn the BS of this world. Because this world is run by a Greek cult headed by this Nephilim filth over here. I'm not going to, I'm not even calling Alexander the Great anymore because he's not great. He can't be great because he's not a human being. Only human beings can become great when they operate in line with Christ. This filth can never be great because he's not even a human being. It should have never existed. The Lord tolerated his existence to later be thrown into the lake of fire. That's it. Okay? So all the earned manhood doctrines out there are referring onto this field over here. All of it. So, okay, let me show you. Let me see. So whether it's gangster lifestyle that you see over here, or the gentleman that you see over here. By the way, the gentleman, here you see an example of a gentleman wearing black and white, which is duality. The gentleman is what They promote the gentleman is the nice guy, which is a defective male that uses females but in a polite manner. And the gangster, the thug, is someone who's mentally defect, who cannot even manage his own masculinity. So the world shows you this over here, and then it shows you this one over here. So you see these two, and they tell you this one is bad, this one will leave you behind pregnant, this one will make you a single mom, this one is not reliable, this one is very aggressive. They will vilify this one. And they present you to this one, which appears very soft. And then, because human females without Christ are in a fallen state, they now will associate this one over here as good. So this is the bad boy, emotionally defect, cannot manage his own masculinity, all kinds of identity issues. He's similar to a little boy that's been beaten by his parents. Man, emotionally, that's how he is. And then you have this one over here, who appears to be the one in control, the one who's not aggressive at all, and the the female is now drawn to this one. But this softness, this gentleman archetype is a reflection of this guy over here. So actually, the gentleman is a modern version of Apollo. But to trick you to believe in the gentleman archetype, which is a reference to the beast, they need to give you another type to scare you off. So they want to scare you into this thing over here. So that indirectly you give homage to the beast. So they are blackmailing you with this bad boy, nice guy dichotomy to worship the beast. That is what they are doing. So look, don't look down on people. Don't look down on men who are drawn to this, because often they don't know any better. That depends on where they grew up. But also don't praise this one. Now, men who want to be like gentlemen, they don't mean any harm, but the gentleman archetype is a modern version of the beast. And it's the gentleman. Oh, hold on. I'm not finished here, because it's the gentlemen who are the wizards, who are the big scam artists. It's the gentlemen that lead drug cartels. It's the gentlemen that lead pedophile rings. It's the gentlemen that sponsor and finance violence against women. Yet women are conditioned to fall for Prince Charming. Okay, look at this. The Rothschild dynasty. Gentlemen scamming the world's population in violence. The gentlemen. Okay? But they tell you to be afraid of this guy over here. And there are guys in the streets who are so mentally gone that they are physically dangerous to be around. But overall, the bad boys are just men who are emotionally defect because they've been traumatized as boys. So now they can't function properly as a man. So these are people that need help. Not to turn them into these abominations, but so they can walk by faith as God intended it to be. Okay? So, again, now I'm going to show you this one more time because I want you to think for a moment here. Which man in his right mind goes out there behaving like this? That as you see on these statues over here, acting in an effeminate manner, seeking attention. Which man goes out there seeking validation for their sexuality from other men? Please. Who would do that? Well, Satan does. He's not even a sexual being. This Nephilim filth he brought forth does. Gentlemen do. And that's the world. The world is a sodomite vampirical structure. That's what it is. Oh, there. This believer talked about the mafia members, about like Peter Pan. Okay, let me show you that one. Now let me look like this. This figure, which is fictive, Peter Pan, he symbolizes the eternal youth that Adam should have operated in. Okay? Adam could have jumped out of mountains and nothing would have happened to him because he operated in God's immortality. But after the fall, this couldn't happen anymore. He symbolizes permanent youth, which should be how all males are, and females also. But what does the world do? The world takes something that should be ours and they demonize it. So now they create this figure called Peter Pan who does want to grow up. Well, growing up is not even biblical to begin with. Okay? This is how they want men to be. They want men to think that being a man implies that you need to be old. You need to be worn out. And this brings me to the following here. Yes, Apollo looks like Peter Pan. Yes, of course he does, Christopher, because Apollo is the model for what they do in this world. This figure that you see over here, this is Satan right over here. That's the name he carried with the Greeks, Zeus. Here you see an image of him, youthful, and here you see an image of him being old. Why? Because amongst the ancient Greeks, the idea was that old males with long beards, with sexual violence, are real men. They were the sex symbols. Okay, so sex symbols amongst ancient Greeks meant that you had to be a middle-aged man with a long beard, being bitter and express his bitterness sexually on younger men. That's what a sex symbol was. And because older men are perceived as wise naturally by human beings, they now gave Satan a more middle-aged appearance just to appeal to the Greek masses. This is him right over here. So, and here you see, there's an artist's rendition of Satan with a middle-aged face, with lightning, because he had lightning coming out of him all the time before his fall. So there's where it comes from. So you put if you take this image, put it on a athletic male body, 4 wings, sunlight coming out with lightning, there you have Satan. Okay? The Greeks were very specific what who they worshipped. So this is your enemy who seduced Eve, and this is his son who now runs the world. Okay? So if you want to be safe, you have to serve Christ and should unlearn what these faggots told you. Because that's what they are. That's what they are, because Satan doesn't really look like any like this. This is just done to get attention from earthly males. Because earthly males tend to see older men as leaders. So this whole fetish with old age is satanic. Okay? So let me repeat that one more time. This fetish with old age, that becoming older means that you're reaching some spiritual potential, is BS. We're never supposed to age anyway. Okay? Because when Christ returns, we'll be resurrected in immortal bodies and we'll have eternal youth. Okay, so if you have older men, of course there can be elders in the community, which you should be, but don't put old age as this ideal. Okay, of course you should live long, but don't think, oh, I need to become I need to have gray hair, I need to be a bit bitter, a bit cynical, because that means I'm mature. Unlearn it. It's all Greek mythology. Let me repeat, this whole myth of adulthood that we have been conditioned into by society, it's Greek mythology. You hear me? Okay, I'm going to say it one more time because you need to understand this. This whole thing of becoming older, that you have to become gray or with white hair, that you need to have some bodily defects, that you need to be a bit more bitter and harsher, because then you are a man, you've grown up. It's Greek mythology. To worship Satan, who pretended to be an old wise man to get attention from men, because he is a sodomite. And it refers to the gentleman, or Prince Charming as they call him also. So unlearn this adulthood hoax. Yes, you can mature physically from childhood to adolescence, adulthood. That's what happens naturally when the longer you live. But this whole growing up thing, unlearn it. So men, unlearn growing up. Learn growing in Christ. Growing up is a hoax by the world, which is Greek mythology. Growing in Christ is true. Growing in Christ is true maturity. It's a real maturity. Because this is what the world considers wise. This image of old bearded men as leaders is Greek mythology. Don't fall for it. They even conditioned you to think that this is what God looks like. What? No! Some of the fallen princes look like this now, because after they were banned from heaven, all the vampires, all the human blood they drank, and all the women they've raped, and the animals they've raped, all those diseases they've contracted while doing those things for centuries began to work on them. So many of them, well, they deteriorated. So they became like this, or they became like, I'm sure again, they became like, hold on, I showed you just before, like these guys, because the Greys are fallen princes. They lost all their masculine glory, and they became like this. So you have fallen princes that are gray and old, or were completely deformed like this thing over here. But that should not be an ideal for the human being. It shouldn't be. So again, let me wrap this up. As a male, you are powering this powerhouse called the earth. Okay? So be confident with what you are, because what you are is valuable. Secondly, unlearn growing up, unlearn growing old. Both growing up and growing old are Greek mythology. You hear me? So unlearn Greek mythology. Thirdly, unlearn this hoax that you need to become a man. Unlearn it. Fourth, begin to invest in yourself so that you can also invest in your community. Okay, you want me to repeat that? Okay. Be confident. So be happy with what you are, because you're valuable. I'm talking to the males now. Secondly, Unlearn Greek mythology, which means unlearn growing old and growing up. Unlearn it. Third, unlearn every lie that tells you need to become a man, because because these teachings of become a man, they're really guilt tripping you. Fourth, invest in yourself so you can invest in the community. Do not put any woman above you. The Western world teaches its men, mainly white men, that need to put their girlfriends and wives above them. Don't. Christ is above you. He is the man. He is the head of male strength, which is, and the male strength in action is sexuality. So Christ is the head of human sexuality. He is above you. You hear me? Not any female. So this whole romantic thing is also Greek mythology, which is sodomy when you think about it. So that is what I want you, male believers, to do. Because when you invest in yourself, whether it's you learning another language, or whether it's you going to the gym, or whether it's you just being more at peace with yourself, or whether it's you taking time off, because taking time off to just do nothing to recover physically and mentally is also investment. When you invest more in yourself, demons begin to lose the grip on you. When let's say, if all men on the earth now would do that, the whole paranormal realm would fall apart. Just like that. It will all decompose within hours. You get it? So I'm asking, what about the husband being the head of the house? Now, house here doesn't mean an actual house. It means an energetic cover. So when a man when a man takes a woman and they have children, he is the energetic cover of that household. That is what it means for a man to be the head of the house. Okay? But his headship is not unconditional. He must acknowledge Christ as his head, because Christ is his head. Because his male strength that he's giving to his wife or girlfriend, or that he's using to invest in his community, is Christ's design. You get it? So, let me repeat this one more time. The earth is a powerhouse powered by human males. We are the energetic emitters in this realm. Females are the receivers and transmitters. And in doing that, they also are, they are just roaming the earth, in this case, as happy, joyful creatures. So in God's design, all females are happy and joyful beings going throughout the earth with no issues at all. Why? Because the strength and empowerment they get come from the earth, from the males in the earth realm, who give it for free. And they don't need to get anything back in return, because the females are in the right state of mind. They reciprocate. They don't exploit the men, but they are using the male strength to glorify God. That's God's design. You get it? So, based on this, someone asked about divorce. So you understand now. By the way, Dion, watch the whole live stream, and not only this thing I'm about to say about divorce. Watch the whole live stream, because you need to understand the whole context. Divorce is when a sexual union is defective and therefore harmful. And because of that, it needs to end. That's what divorce is. It shouldn't have come that way, that a sexual union became defective and therefore dangerous. If it would have been prevented, no separation would have been needed. In this world, there are times a sexual union needs to end. And when it has to end is when God's design is distorted and abused. So if a female is with a man and the man refuses to be like a man, he just comes up with excuses and just wants to flee from stuff, or he demands unconditional recognition without providing anything in return, the female must leave. For her to ignore her inner radar and to ignore her own mentally, her own mental and bodily warning signals that she has to leave means that she's complying and enabling danger. And that means that she's rebelling against Christ himself. When a man is with a female and the female refuses to seek help, to seek recovery, and to comply with justice and to comply with safety, he must leave. If there are children involved, then the children must be considered first while the parents separate. So the community has an obligation to guard the children. And once the children are older, they need to do the same thing with the next generation. What happens now is that communities tolerate defective people to get out of hand sexually, and once those defective people are out of hand sexually and children came forth from it, now they don't want to deal with the consequence. Now they all want to look the other way around. That's not how it ought to be. Okay? Because this is how it goes with marriage. Because someone asked me about marriage, it goes like this. Natural marriage is arranged by the elders of a community. That's how it always has been in the human history. Until the Greek Empire, when they told men, well, it happened later in the Greek Empire, when the Roman era began, they began to tell men that they need permission from Caesar, who is the high priest of Apollo, to be involved with a woman. Since when does this Nephilim field here decide on your male energy? Well, since the Greek Empire, people have been accepting it. So, before the Greek Empire, you had the older men in a community. They came together and they discussed what was going on in the community. And they said, okay, we have 30, I'm going to give an example. We have like 30 girls between age 12 and 20. They're all of the age that they can have children, that they can receive male sexual energy. We know that if we leave them to their own devices, it will get out of hand. We don't want all of those consequences. So we are going to make sure that they have men to give sexual attention to them, but those men have to be accountable to the community. And the community supports the decision of the elders, and when a woman encounters a man that she considers interesting, she goes to her mother and to her father or to her older brother or to some other relatives, and they discuss it with the elders, and then they call the man and they talk to the man, and the man has to promise compliance with justice and compliance with the health of the community, and then they come together. And when they are together, the community becomes the guard of their sexual relationship. Because human sexuality was always regulated by communities. In the modern day world, the government wants to do that, which mainly comes from the heritage of the Greek Empire. So, in ancient times, it was the community that agreed to allow a sexual relationship to exist, and they protected the relationship so that children that would come forth from that relationship also grew up in a healthy environment. That's marriage. The wedlock is an enforcement by the government to control men, in which the men need the permission from the beast to get involved with a woman. And in exchange for this permission, he needs to give off all his bodily and mental energy to the citizen by working hard and contributing to the economy. to pay taxes. So, let me tell you this. Natural marriage is a good thing. It has its natural flow. Wedlock and matrimony, the wedlock is the enforcement, and matrimony is the continuation of this enforcement, are Greek inventions. Okay? And these inventions are designed to tax masculine energy. And physical tax with money is only there to put men under pressure, under stress, to work hard, so demons are sponsored by them being tired. You get this? So natural marriage is a good thing, but what people call marriage today is just a social contract enforced by the state. Two big differences. Well, the Apollonians want all men in a wedlock. That's what they want. Okay? They need for men to be sexually involved with women, or else we don't have a next generation. So they have to tolerate that, because they can't build artificial wombs to generate another generation. So they need to give some significance to females. So they want men to only be sexually involved with women just to get an offspring. And for all the rest, they want men to be separated from females. That's why you need to work from 9 to 5. That's why you need to work so hard to provide for your family. This is done in such a way to prevent natural marriage from taking place. The Apollonians want wedlocks. They don't want marriages. They call wedlocks marriage to confuse you. They want wedlocks. Because a wedlock is what they call matrimony, which means a single game. Okay? Matrimony, monos, in ancient Greek is game. No. Monos means single. And then you have gamos, which is game. So monogamos, only one game. Matrimony, referring to the mother goddess. So when you look at it, they want you trapped. First of all, a wedlock is not even recognized by God at all, because it's a Greek invention to keep men away from doing what they're supposed to do. So think about it this way. In God's natural design, there is no fear, so there's no violence. So why should an organization based on violence, called the government, have anything to say about your human sexuality? Think about it that way. Why should they have anything to say about your human sexuality if they're operating in the principle of fear, while God has not given us a spirit of fear? So, wedlocks and matrimonies are not recognized by the Most High because it's not natural marriage. It's an because wedlocks and matrimony, that thing is an artificial construct to trap your mind. So there's no freedom in it. There is no natural joy nor happiness in it. Now you need to fake it. Now you need to make love. Now you need to be romantic to recreate an intense high to make you feel as if you're happy, while it's not the case. So if you're in a wedlock and someone broke the terms of the wedlock, it's the Greek system that will be upset with him, and society that enables the Greek system. But that whole wedlock thing was an abomination to begin with. Okay? It's not an abomination that a male and a female came together in a safe sexual union. That's not an abomination. But what was an abomination is that they submitted themselves to this violence of the Greek system. You get it? That's the abomination. You get what I'm saying? So, do you understand what I've just explained about marriage and divorce and the difference between a natural marriage and the wedlock? Do you understand it? Let me know in the live chat. So, I've I've said in this video what men ought to do. What females ought to do, I don't have to I don't have to take long to say this, is they have to accept what they are. They have to accept all their vulnerabilities and inherent insecurities. I'm not talking about the toxic insecurities that the world deforms you into. I'm talking about your natural insecurities and your natural vulnerabilities. Every woman should accept them and embrace them. Okay, that's one thing. Secondly, they should crave healthy male attention, which is natural. Attention seeking is natural feminine behavior. I've explained that in my video series about feminine power. That's secondly. Thirdly, they should trust. Well, this should be the first thing, but you get what I'm saying? They should trust the man, Christ himself, to be for them. Fourthly, they should long for male believers who are renewed in their minds to be around them, and they should trust those male believers. Not because of male believers, but because those are healthy men. So, to wrap it up, they should accept their weaknesses and vulnerabilities. They should crave healthy male attention, which is attention seeking, which is natural. They must embrace male believers around them who are renewed in their mind. Fourthly, they should crave to be role models for other women to do the same thing. When a female operates in her femininity, it scares off predators. When a predator appears and he sees, you also have female predators, but I'm focused on the male predators now, because the world out there keeps scaring you for male predators. They pretend that all men are predators. Now listen to this. A male predator will seek to cause trauma to a woman just to get her out of her femininity. Okay? Because once you're out of your femininity, you can easily be violated. Now, if you have a small girl that was violated by a stepdad or by someone else, that's different. That's just them using their physical advantage on a spirit being that's not that developed yet. But any woman who is past her mid-teens has influence on her environment energetically. And such a woman, from that point on, you need to traumatize her in the spirit before you can traumatize her in the physical. That's why society spends so much time traumatizing its females, because that makes them easy targets for male predators. And then that same society can use the danger of male predators as an excuse to control that same population. Someone says I trust God only. Now, what I mean with trust is, look, absolute trust is only for God, okay? But you need practical trust in each other as a community, or else you can't operate as a species. You can't operate as a community if there is some trust amongst one another. So practical trust must be there in one another, or else no human interaction can take place. Okay. So, about men investing in themselves, male believers should value themselves and not be tricked by the scams of this world. Okay? So that is where sexual health begins, and that's where healing will begin to flow in the earth realm. So, I'm going to answer this question anymore. I'm going to answer this question still, and then I have to wrap this live stream up because I don't want to make it too long. I'm already overdue in the minutes, but I'm going to answer this question asked by Shiny Silver Bunny. Can you provide an example of this? I'm still having a hard time understanding being comfortable in my own vulnerability as a single woman. So, first of all, single woman means that you're completely alone. That term already is a trap. Okay? Because you have relative isolation, but complete isolation doesn't even exist in the spirit world. Okay, so that's one thing. As a woman without a man yet, being accepting your vulnerability simply means that you accept, okay, I am this vulnerable being. The common male has both a physical as well as a spiritual advantage compared to me. Accept it. Accept also what happened to you in your past, whether you could do something about it or not, doesn't mean, just accept what happened and accept that there is hope and that there are solutions out there for you. Okay? So being at peace with what you are, that's very important for a female. Well, I'm going to end this live stream now. Thank you for being here. And remember, agree with Christ and be at peace.